So the Philadelphia Eagles won a Super Bowl in 2024. This feels wrong, but I'm going to get greedy and ask for more in 2025. I'll tell you what I mean coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast.
You are Locked On Eagles, your daily Philadelphia Eagles podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We thank you so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Welcome in, Eagles fans, to this Wednesday edition of the show. I'm your host, Louis DiBiase. Thanks for tuning in. Right now, few weeks, just a little PSA, public service announcement. We are going to be down to 3 to 4 episodes a week. We will get back to daily right before the Eagles start up training camp in, under a month at this point? I think we're a month away. Before you know it, training camp's going to be here, the preseason, the regular season, but we will have 3 to 4 episodes of me hosting, and then we also have 2 squad shows a week where myself, Mark Farzetta, Harry Mays, and Jason Martius, we have an hour-long special for you, Tuesdays and Thursdays, live on our Locked On Eagles YouTube channel. So we're still going to have 5 to 6 episodes a week, but I'll be going down to 3 to 4 for the daily episodes. Coming up in today's edition of the show, I want to talk about getting greedy in 2025. The Philadelphia Eagles had a historic season in 2024. I think I agree with Saquon Barkley. It's a top 5 team in the history of the NFL. That is one of the deepest, most talented rosters an NFL team has ever put together. And the domination that the Eagles pulled off in the Super Bowl against one of the greatest dynasties in the history of the NFL, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time. That really capped off the legacy of such a historic football team. But this year, there are certain things that I do want to see more of. I think last year's team wasn't always perfect in the regular season, and to avoid any slower start like last year when they were 2-2, or to avoid any sort of collapse like they suffered in 2023, there are some things that I would like to see more of. And even if it's not to prevent anything, it's just, again, we talk about it on the show all the time. You're always trying to evolve. You're always trying to stay ahead of the curve, especially when you're the champions. Every team is gunning for you. You are not the hunted or the hunters anymore. You are the hunted. And so you have to stay ahead of the curve, like A.J. Brown has said, like Nick Sirianni has said. You're not going to throw everything out that you did last year because that's what makes you great, but you do have to change things up. So there's things that I'm kind of demanding of this football team in 2025. I have 3 things I want to see the offense do more of this year and 3 things on defense. Let's start with the offensive side of the football. On offense, I want to see more of the quick passing game. I think that's something I really want to see Kevin Patullo place an emphasis on early in the year. I want to see A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, Saquon Barkley. I want to see these elite weapons get more chances to be just that, elite weapons in space with the ball in their hands to make something happen. I really feel like, although these 4 players have been historically good for this franchise over the last 4 years, I do think in one area of their game, they've kind of been underutilized. It's yards after the catch. I think A.J. Brown, when you look at who he's been with the Eagles, yeah, it's a top 3, maybe the best receiver in football over the past 3 years. But where does he make his money? It's all over the field, but really for the Eagles, it's been with the deep ball. Devontae Smith, it's a lot of, separation, creating separation with route running, the deep ball itself, but, doing things on their own to make things happen with the ball in their hands. But I want to see designed looks, design plays to just get A.J. Brown the ball on a quick crosser or a mesh concept where, that play to Dallas Goedert against New Orleans where in traffic you get guys almost to run into each other to create separation for these players. Just get easy looks, get the ball out of Jalen Hurts' hands fast, and let these guys make things happen. It doesn't always have to be these complicated, long-lasting routes. Sometimes, that NFC title tape against the Commanders, that's what I'm talking about with the passing game. Go back and look at just A.J. Brown taking a quick 6-7 yard comeback route, turns upfield, breaks a tackle, turns it into a 15-plus yard play and a first down. The plays don't always have to be complicated. Just find a way to get the ball in these guys' hands quicker, right? I think the quick passing game is something that early on in the year, I think it got better as the year went on and they started to play more efficient, clean football. But I do want to see them, first off, just, again, be simple, get the ball out quick, get the ball in these guys' hands. But I do want to see Patullo design things to get A.J. Brown the ball over the middle of the field. get Dallas Goedert the ball on some mesh concept, Saquon Barkley a wheel route, get him lined up with a linebacker one-on-one, or just, more checkdowns. Like that play against the Dallas Cowboys where he literally makes two guys run into themselves, like into each other, like he's prime Michael Vick in Atlanta in the early 2000s. That was just off a quick screen, or not even a screen, a quick swing pass, a quick check down. Saquon took a ball that was 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage into 15, 20-yard reception. So I do want to see the quick passing game become more efficient. A.J. Brown, like his game in Tennessee, like he's a deep ball specialist in Philly, but in Tennessee, like he was a guy that he lived over the middle of the field, with just quick screens and quick passes to get him the football. And he was a run after the catch nightmare in Tennessee. I feel like that's the one thing that he really hasn't been utilized enough with in Philadelphia. And we know Dallas Goedert is, I think, if not the greatest run after the catch tight end in the league right now, he's certainly top 3. It's the easy yards. I think get easy yards. I love the blueprint that they showed against Washington. I think that's the way to do this moving forward. And I do think the way that Jalen Hurts is becoming more surgical inside the pocket, he's getting the ball out quicker, he's throwing with anticipation. If that evolvement continues, that, evolution, then I do think the quick passing game will get better and better as well, just following along with Jalen Hurts' development. So that's definitely something I want to see more of this year is the quick passing game. Just get the ball in these guys' hands. And speaking of that, can we fix the screen game? Like, you have, I think, the greatest, if not the greatest, a top 3 group of weapons in the history of the NFL. Like, how many teams have had A.J. Brown, an all-pro, all-time great wide receiver, Devontae Smith, one of the best route runners I've ever seen. I think maybe the greatest college receiver in college football history, one of the most clutch receivers in the NFL in this era. You've got Saquon Barkley, one of the greatest running backs of all time. Dallas Goedert, one of the most complete skill sets a tight end has had in this era. You have all these guys, and you have an elite offensive line, too, to add on top of all of that. Why can't the screen game work? Like, I just don't understand why. When was the last season the screen game has really been an efficient weapon, a strength of the Eagles' offense, like the early Doug Peterson days? I mean, the screen game is just, there's no excuse for it to be as ineffective as it's been with these weapons in this offensive line as it's been. And it feels like the only time they're really trying things in the screen game over the past few years with these like wide receiver bubble screens to Jahan Dotson, where Devontae Smith is your one and only lead blocker. And he's the skinniest player on your unit. And he's taken on like 2 corners. And there's always a free guy to get to whoever has the ball. Like, get these athletic offensive linemen moving downfield. I mean, Cam Jurgens is one of the most athletic linemen in football. They drafted him because he was reminding them of Jason Kelce so much, right? I mean, Jordan Mailata, one of the most athletic linemen in the league. Same with Lane Johnson. Landon Dickerson can get to that second and third level. Tyler Steen, not so much, but like, get those guys moving downhill. Linemen love to move forward. And I feel like the screen game, it's just really not been a strength of this football team. I would love to see Kevin Patullo find a way to make that more effective this year. I just think it was the types of screens they ran, especially last year, that just really didn't work. Crazy enough, though, I was doing some research. The screen game is not really working across the entire NFL. Like, despite it's being used more every single year. So last year, it was within the last 15 years, a high of 11% of passing attempts for quarterbacks were screens. That has gone up pretty much every single year. It was 10.4 in 2023, 10.2 in 2022. Like, it's going up the attempts every single year because defenses are playing back more. Teams have more athletic offensive linemen. They have all these dynamic weapons that they want to get the ball in their hands in space. Like, they're trying to put emphasis on this, but it's interesting. NFL yards per screenplay by season since 2010, it's pretty much gone down every single year. There's been a couple random spikes here and there, but the screen game is not very efficient across the league. I'm going to do some more research as to why that is, but I do want to see the Eagles find a way to be one of the teams that get it back on track because they have the best group of weapons in the entire NFL. So get the quick passing game going earlier in the season. Fix the screen game. I think these things will also help you start faster on offense. That was a problem early in the season. And something I loved that Kellen Moore did in the middle of the season, but then kind of stopped at the end and wasn't really doing it early in the season either. Under center, play action. I feel like Jalen Hurts looked really comfortable on the move, rolling especially to his right. I think Jalen Hurts got a lot better last year throwing on the run. It just felt like the under center play action always worked. It was a main part of Kellen Moore's offense that got this offense back on track in the middle of the year. I just think it was really effective. And misdirection in general, I think, works really well with this personnel. So I do hope they kind of get back to that. And that's like one of the core principles of Kellen Moore's offense that Sirianni and Patullo do keep for the 2025 offense. So those are three things that if I'm getting greedy and I want to see more of certain things in 2025, it's the quick passing game, it's the screen game, and then it's under center play action. What about the defense? Let's get greedy on defense. Coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. Today's episode of the Locked On Eagles podcast is brought to you by Rugiet. Probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Ready. Rugiet Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rugiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast, on average in 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. If traditional options haven't worked, Rugiet might be the answer. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch. You can even read real customer reviews on their website. It's helping a lot of people feel more confident and present in the moment. Head to Rugiet.com/LockedOnNFL. Use our code in all capital letters, LockedOnNFL, to get 15% off today. That's Rugiet, RUGIET.com/LockedOnNFL, and use the promo code LockedOnNFL in all capital letters for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatments. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law, but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rugiet's website for full safety information. Thanks so much for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. I'm getting greedy on this Wednesday edition of the podcast. What do I want to see more of in 2025 from the offense and the defense? On offense, I would love to see more of the quick passing game. Just get the ball to A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Dallas Goedert, Saquon Barkley. Let them do what they do best, create yards. I think these guys are YAC weapons, rack monsters. This is not no YAC Zach Ertz where, they just fall down instantly. These guys can create on their own. Like, let's get more simple routes at times, get the ball out faster, and let's get the ball into the hands of these elite weapons. Fix the screen game as well for that exact same reason, and I would love to see more under center play action. I think that was a real strength of this offense in the middle of the year. What about defense? This was the number one defense in football last year. They obliterated maybe the greatest play caller and the greatest or top two quarterback in the history of the NFL in the Super Bowl. So it feels wrong asking for more, but I think there are certain things that I would like to see more of in 2025. One thing I'd like to see for this player to take that next step. He was already an elite cornerback as a rookie, but to take that next step as like a top 3, top 5 player at his position, I want to see more interceptions for Quinyon Mitchell. And it wasn't like the opportunities weren't there. Q's instincts, his vision, just like knowing when to close in on a ball when he's playing off coverage. I think his body control, his speed, his ability to mirror wide receivers, it put him in a position so often last year to make a play on the football. And a lot of the times he did. Like consistently, he led the league last year in forced incompletions and pass deflections, but he only had 2 interceptions combining the regular season and the playoffs. Did not have one in the regular season, had 2 in the postseason, and that's because he just couldn't finish the play. He couldn't catch the ball. There were 6 or I went back and watched all of Quinyon's tape actually last week when I was on vacation because I'm a psychopath, and that's what I do. I'm on a lake at a lake house in the Finger Lakes in New York, and I'm just grinding Quinyon Mitchell tape. But I counted 6 or 7 plays that he should have had an interception. Like Quinyon Mitchell should have led the NFL in interceptions last year as a rookie. Ended up finishing a single one of those plays. Some of them weren't his fault. You had the one play against Cleveland where C.J. Gardner-Johnson literally runs into him, but there were a lot of plays where the ball's in his hands. Like he made the play. He beat out the receiver to get to the football, and he just couldn't bring it in. So Quinyon Mitchell, if he wants to take that next step and really starts to flip the field for the Eagles and becomes this elite corner that's talked about in the same conversation as, I think he's already there from a talent and production perspective, but I think if he wants to get the respect of the national media and the National Football League, the entire fan base and the entire league in general, and like become a household name, like a Sauce Gardner, like a Patrick Surtain, I do want to see him finish more plays this year, get more interceptions, especially because the Eagles are going to need it. Like C.J. Gardner-Johnson, that's 6 interceptions that are walking out the door. Darius Slay, he had a couple picks last year. He had a big one in the wild card round against the Packers. Like Darius Slay has been consistently a playmaker, forcing turnovers for the Eagles defense over the last 5 years. So Quinyon, it's not just that it'll help him, propel into this new stratosphere of being a star player, but the Eagles also need him to do that because a lot of interceptions are walking out the door. Reed Blankenship consistently, you can bank on him getting you 3 to 5 a year, and they're always at the right time in the fourth quarter of games, it feels like, in close one-score matchups. But outside of him, like, Cooper DeJean didn't have one until the Super Bowl. Keely Ringo, like, I think we'll see what happens. This is going to be his first year as a starter. So, and then you got Drew Makuba and Sidney Brown at safety. Those are projection players that haven't started in the NFL yet. Quinyon, like, they need him to get picks in 2025. So that's definitely something I want to see more of. And then something else, and this is something Vic Fangio definitely does, but I'd like to see even more pre-snap movement, especially now that your personnel is so versatile. Like you have Zach Baun, who could play inside linebacker. He can play on the edge. You have Jahad Campbell, who can play inside linebacker, who can play on the edge. You have Cooper DeJean, who can play nickel corner, outside corner, safety. I think Drew Makuba can play safety and nickel corner. Quinyon Mitchell even played in the slot all of last summer before Cooper DeJean got healthy and Q moved to the outside before the season started. Quinyon was in the slot, and it was Ringo and Rogers that were rotating reps as the first team boundary corner opposite Darius Slay. So the personnel is so versatile now that I would love to see Fangio say, let's just confuse the hell out of quarterbacks pre-snap. Let's get these guys moving around where you just don't know where these chess pieces are going to fall on the board. And you're not going to do that every single play, but I would love to see them. And Fangio's already so good with disguise coverage looks, disguise blitz packages, but his personnel is getting even more multiple, even more versatile, that I want to see that become like an emphasis of this defense next year. Because I think pre-snap, if you can cause confusion and get the quarterback just thinking too much, that's where you can force them into mistakes. And that's how you get more interceptions for my guy Quinyon Mitchell. So pre-snap movement, really want to see more of that in 2025 because the personnel, it can take it. Like I'd love to see, Jahad Campbell, he's lined up on the inside. Suddenly he's called down and he's on the edge, or, Cooper DeJean moves around from safety to nickel, just disguised looks. I want to see more of that. I think that's really crucial. The Eagles took a big step last year in becoming that kind of team. They haven't always been that in years past. I feel like Jim Schwartz's defense was very simplistic. Pin your ears back, go get them. Fangio's defense is more complex, and I want to see it now that everyone's a year older. This was the youngest defense in football last year. It's their second year in the scheme, so the understanding of this philosophy and this system is just at another level. So that'll help as well for pre-snap. You don't have to communicate verbally as much. It's, Reed Blankenship said it on the podcast with Cooper DeJean. Like, we're like communicating without even saying anything now. Like, everybody's so in sync with this defense that it allows Fangio to start to add more to this. And I think that's something fascinating to watch this summer before the season starts. And then one other thing that I want to see more of, more defensive back heavy looks. I'd love to see more dime because Cooper DeJean can move across the formation, because you have both Sidney Brown and Drew Makuba, who I want to see on the football field with Keely Ringo, Reed Blankenship, Quinyon Mitchell. Like they have a lot of interesting defensive backs. And especially early on in the year when, right now Jahad Campbell will still see when he starts to fully practice. Fangio said it's August. Sirianni wouldn't give us a timetable on that. I think Fangio's probably right. And he'll also be a rookie, figuring out his role in the NFL. He might not start off fast. Maybe he does, but he might not. Look at what Cooper DeJean did last year. Didn't really break out until after the bye. Nakobe Dean's going to be hurt, and I don't think is going to play for the first month of the season, maybe more. He will probably start off on the PUP list to begin the season. So your linebacking core is going to be pretty thin. I would just like to see Fangio use, again, just like more pre-snap movement, use different looks. Like I would love to see them use more dime. Cooper DeJean can play like dime linebacker, and Drew Makuba can come down in the slot, and you can have Sidney Brown playing as a deep safety. Like, there is a lot of things you can do with the secondary. And again, I think it might call for it. Your personnel your depth kind of needs more defensive backs on the field early on in the year. And these are also guys that can really hold up well in the run game. Like DeJean, something that's so underrated about him is his ability to be a plus in the run game as that nickel, kind of overhang defender as a defensive back. He's such a physical, good tackler for a corner. He's a big guy. Like, he's not your typical undersized slot corner. So I think, more dime. I want to see that as well in 2025. You know what I don't want to see, though, is the NFL continuing to collude. There's been some collusion that's been discovered by NFL insiders regarding guaranteed contracts. I think Jalen Hurts could help change the landscape of these contracts in the NFL. I'll tell you what I mean coming up next right here on the Locked On Eagles podcast. This Wednesday edition of Locked On Eagles is brought to you by Monarch Money. Ever manage your money and feel like it's difficult? I want it to be easier. With Monarch Money, it can be. Whether you're growing your savings or planning a big purchase, Monarch puts you in the driver's seat. It's like having your own personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is more than a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place. So in addition to managing your money, you're also building wealth. One surprising thing, I noticed about tracking my money with Monarch was all of the online shopping I've been doing, buying food through, food delivery services. Luckily now I save and I spend a lot smarter thanks to Monarch. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use our code in all capital letters, LOCKEDONNFL. It's LOCKEDON NFL at monarchmoney.com. You're going to get 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONNFL to save smarter. Half off your first year. Thanks as always for making Locked On Eagles your first listen each and every day. Some interesting news developed across the NFL yesterday. Pablo Torre, Mike Florio, two NFL insiders that got into the weeds of what has been discovered to be collusion that's been going on across the NFL over the last couple years. So these two insiders kind of working together. One is an independent reporter now. Florio, of course, we all know, is with NBC Sports Pro Football Talk. They discovered that the NFL pretty much buried a major case between them and the NFL Players Association that had to do with collusion among owners and league officials in 2022 over fully guaranteed contracts for players. It sounds like there was like an actual case where the NFLPA was going after the league for collusion. And the NFLPA also covered this up. And it's really intriguing to me, and it does affect the Eagles because of Jalen Hurts, because of the way that the Eagles like to build their roster, the way they like to construct their salary cap, and the way they like to spend their money, or not spend and save their money. I think the NFL really got caught here with something. And it was obvious. Like, it wasn't something that was totally groundbreaking, earth-shattering news to me, because I think we all knew. So let me add some context to this before I get into it. The NFL, what I mean by they were colluding regarding guaranteed contracts is Deshaun Watson got the first ever fully guaranteed contract in NFL history with the Cleveland Browns in 2022, getting over $200 million guaranteed. The NFL, they hated it. Owners hated Cleveland for it because they thought it was going to set a precedent that all-star quarterbacks now were going to see that deal, especially considering Deshaun Watson did not pan out. It was the most historically awful trade. It was the worst, the most botched trade in the history of the NFL. It was such a disaster, and he was the one that got that contract. Owners were scared that Joe Burrow was going to ask for a fully guaranteed contract. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Jalen Hurts when his deal was up. Lamar Jackson did ask for that contract when he wanted a new contract a couple years ago. He wanted the Deshaun Watson deal, and that's when I knew instantly there was collusion. I was talking about it then. A top 3 player in the league, a 2-time MVP, had requested a trade because Baltimore wasn't going to give him that contract, and he was frustrated, and not a single team wanted him. Not a single team made an offer. You don't think there was a back behind the curtain, closed door handshake between owners that, hey, we are not going to. The Ravens placed that it was the RFA tender on him, right? Like if somebody offered him a deal, they can match anything. there was a closed-door agreement between owners that they were not going to give Lamar this deal. Nobody was going to trade for him. We can't let players set this precedent. We have to make a stand now and not allow what the Browns did to be the normal. And the NFLPA pretty much caught him. But the NFLPA didn't release the records of this case because they were caught saying some things about, players like Russell Wilson, calling him a wuss on the record for not also trying to get a fully guaranteed contract that same offseason that Watson did to continue the momentum. The NFLPA felt like Wilson kind of screwed up the momentum towards fully guaranteed deals, and so this whole case was kind of buried. And it made me start to think, like, how can players, number one, should be outraged? They should have been outraged the minute Lamar Jackson was pretty much just held hostage by the Ravens and the entire NFL. Nobody was going to give him that deal. Nobody was going to trade for him because they all had this collusion agreement. How does the league change this? Saquon himself mentioned it on Reed Blankenship and Cooper DeJean's podcast. Like, players should get fully guaranteed contracts. NFL players are the only players in the top four major team leagues: the NBA, the NHL, the MLB. They're the only league where there are not fully guaranteed contracts, and yet it's the most dangerous sport. So players might be justified more than any player, more than any athlete, to get fully guaranteed deals. How do they get it? The problem is, yes, this collusion case was found out. It makes the NFL look terrible, and the NFLPA, and people are asking, what now? Look, I don't know if there's going to be significant change. These are 32 billionaires that have the best lawyers in the world, and they have all the power. They have all the control. The only way that change happens is through the CBA, through potentially a lockout. The players saying, we want this change and we're not going to play until it happens. The problem with that is every time the CBA is up, the NFLPA always loses because, number one, again, the owners are just more powerful. But number two, the NFL is different than other leagues. It's such a big operation. There are over 50 players, 52 players on a 53-man roster. I don't know why I blanked on that. A practice squad of guys that need, I think the 1% of the league of athletes, of players in this league can afford to go on strike, like the star quarterbacks, the Jalen Hurts of the world that have over $200 million in their bank account. But for the practice squad player, the fringe bubble, the 53rd player on the roster, they need those practice checks. They need those game checks. So the NFLPA, I feel like, can never really go as far as they would like to make significant change because it's just too big of an operation. And the majority of the players, they can't afford to do what it takes to get this done. I think the only way that players get fully guaranteed contracts, or at least quarterbacks, maybe it takes just that one position to start this thing off. Because running backs, Saquon's certainly not going to get it. I think the only way this gets done, even for one position, is if Jalen Hurts goes to Joe Burrow, who goes to Josh Allen, who talks to Pat Mahomes, who talks to Lamar Jackson, and all these guys say, look, we're the breadwinners of this league. We're the golden goose. These owners need us. The owners have, it feels like, all the power, but the quarterbacks, when you think about it, really have all the power. They're the ones. If Josh Allen says, I am not playing until I get a fully guaranteed contract, and Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, they all band together and say, this has to be done. We want fully guaranteed deals. Until they are willing to go that far, Lamar Jackson, he accepted eventually a really good contract that had a lot of guaranteed money, but it wasn't, it's never been confirmed he wanted a fully guaranteed deal, but he did. He did, because if he didn't, why would the Atlanta Falcons have not traded for him, or the New Orleans Saints, or heck, even at the time, the Philadelphia Eagles? This was before the Jalen Hurts breakout. Why would nobody have went for him? Because he wanted a fully guaranteed deal, and the owners all had a closed-door agreement that they weren't giving out this Deshaun Watson deal again. I think it's got to be up to the star quarterbacks. If they want this change, it's got to be done. But I don't know if you'll ever see fully guaranteed deals for all players. Or the majority of them. I just can't see that happening in the NFL. It's just a different operation. It's harder to get that done than the NHL, the NBA, the MLB. It's just smaller rosters, and it's different. But I do think players should be outraged by this, especially they should be outraged at the NFLPA as well for hiding this. But the guys like Jalen Hurts, they're the only ones that can really make true change if they want to see fully guaranteed contracts one day. I don't know if we'll ever get to it, and if we do, that brings a lot of questions about how the salary cap changes. Like, can the Eagles continue to build their roster the way that they do and the way that they do with money? Like the strategy that Jeffrey Lurie takes with front-loaded money, like if there's guarantees, like does that change things? There's a lot of what-ifs about this, but fascinating news coming out that was not supposed to come out. The NFL did not want it to come out, that owners colluded, and they have tried to have successfully put a stop to fully guaranteed contracts. Now, we'll see what guys like Jalen Hurts, quarterbacks, and players across the NFL, what they do with this information. But it's something that I definitely feel like it could lead to a big standoff down the road. We'll see what happens. All right, guys, it's going to do it for today's edition of the Locked On Eagles podcast. Thanks so much for making us your first listen each and every day. Again, 3 to 4 shows for the next couple weeks, but we also have 2 squad shows a week, hour-long, live on YouTube Tuesdays and Thursdays. So, I mean, we still have a podcast for you pretty much every day. Still 5 to 6 episodes all week long. Thanks so much for hopping in, downloading, watching, and listening, and let's go Birds. Fly, Eagles, fly.